There's many ways to expand genetics when it comes to mycology. However, today we're going to cover two of the most common ways out there, namely grain-to-grain transfers and liquid culture. So let's start off by talking a little bit about grain-to-grain transfers. Grain-to-grain transfers happen when you take one bag of grain and multiply it into multiple bags of grain. This is done by opening the bags in front of a flow hood and pouring a portion of the contents into a new bag. Now, the portion that you pour into the bag will determine the timeline of how quickly your new grain bags will grow. Now, because we're not operating in front of a flow hood today and have all the proper PPE, I'm going to push this aside and we will do a video demonstrating exactly how to do this in a lab type setting. But today we wanted to focus really on liquid culture. MycoBOOM is a brand new product that we just launched this past week, and it is an excellent way to expand your genetics. What MycoBOOM is a liquid nutrient mix that helps you expand and store your genetics. The way that this is done is utilizing either spores or liquid culture and injecting the contents directly into the bottle. I'll preface this by saying that it is always good practice to make sure you're cleaning off your entire area using 70% isopropyl alcohol. Make sure you're always wearing your PPE. Make sure you're always wearing your mask, but obviously for demonstration's sake, I'm not wearing the mask today. Highly recommend that you guys do. So let's go ahead and start off and show you guys exactly how to use MycoBOOM. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure, again, there's no such thing as too clean. Make sure that your area is clean. Make sure your bottles are cleaned off. I went ahead and cleaned everything on the table and wiped off the bottles with some alcohol, and now we're ready to go. You're going to want to make sure that if you're using a spore syringe, we'll use spores as an example in this first part, that you have everything prepped and ready to go, as well as the alcohol pads that are nearby that are provided with your spores and with your MycoBOOM bottles. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep the syringe by applying the needle to the syringe. Second thing I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and pop this red top off to expose the self-healing injection port. You're going to want to go ahead and give it a good little wipe. This is good safety precaution, but as your skills develop, you're going to want to make sure that you always keep everything as clean as possible. So that extra step is totally worth it to make sure that you don't get contamination in the future. So now that the bottle is prepped and the syringe is prepped, this is a 10 cc or 10 ml spore syringe. I'm going to simply take the cap off carefully and inject the spores directly into the top, right in the middle of that injection port. The reason that we leave headroom in the bottle in there is because we're going to be pushing all this liquid into the bottle, so there has to be space and there has to be ample oxygen in there for the spores to germinate properly. You may notice that the plunger might go up a little bit. This is perfectly fine. This is just the bottle equalizing. But once this is done, simply remove it. Make sure you put your cap back on and put this in a safe place. This bottle is now complete. So you can see those spores that are floating in there, and the transformation will happen over the next several days as the germination process begins from your spores to develop into liquid culture. After a couple weeks, you'll have a bottle that looks similar to this, where you have liquid culture, this white mass of mycelium floating in the bottle. You can now simply use this bottle to expand into 2 more bottles using a syringe that's provided to pull 5 to 10 mLs or cc's of liquid culture to put into your remaining 2 bottles. This will now give you approximately 240 to 250 milliliters of viable liquid culture for you to use to inoculate your all-in-one bags or to your grain bags. Another way to expand your genetics using MycoBOOM is simply by taking one liquid culture syringe, injecting it into the bottle, waiting for that mycelium to develop, and then taking 5 to 10 mLs from that bottle to expand into the other 2 bottles as well.